Hey everybody, this is Carly Cottrell, and everything in this garden can kill you. We're at the Poison Gardens in the Alnwick Castle garden in Alnwick, England today. I'm going to tell you the story of all of the different ways that this garden can unalive you. Anything in here, in one way or another, can kill you. So we're gonna talk about my favorites. This whole tunnel, you can walk through it. It's very cool, made of Irish ivy. Very poisonous, very deadly. As our tour guide said, nasty stuff. Okay, so learn something new today. This is what they call the cat plant, but not C-A-T, it's C-H-A-T. This is where the phrase cat got your tongue came from. So when you chew it, this makes you really like aggressive and aware, and this just kind of gives you that extra like, and Somali pirates evidently chew this before they go off for, you know, whatever pirates do, the plundering and pillaging and whatnot. So it also evidently gives you cancer of the mouth and the tongue, and at a certain point with that, they cut out your tongue, hence the phrase, cat got your tongue. All right, this is white oleander. This is common in the US. One of the things our guide was telling us was any part of this can kill you. The leaves, the actual root, any part of it. And if it's burning, inhaling the smoke can kill you. And he said that there are lots of people, if they have oleander around their property or even close enough that if there's a fire and the smoke goes to them, if they inhale that, they'll die. Pretty much anything, you're gonna die. This was used by ladies back in the day. So what they would do is they would get a certain part of it, they would get a little bit of an extract, little drop, and they would put the drops in their eyes, and it would super dilate their eyes, and it would make them more attractive to the menfolk. But unfortunately what happens after that is it keeps seeping in. If you use it repeatedly, prolonged use, or even repeated use, basically you would go blind, and you know, hilarity ensued from there. So also poisonous, don't eat it. All of it will kill you. It will unalive. Mesfilus germanica. We don't remember the short form name for this tree. These little fruit guys here are sometimes used to make jam, but you can only make it into a certain way after they like freeze and they rot and then they fall apart, and then you do something with them and then supposedly it's safe. I'm not gonna mess with it. I'm not doing any of that. But they say that sometimes children mistake them for crab apples and pluck them off the tree and eat them, and evidently it only takes a couple to kill a small child. If you ingest anything from this tree actually produces the chemical cyanide, and that's what poisons and kills you. The next plant we're going to talk about is the castor oil bean. So these come in a little pod. So I'm going to show you what they look like. So down in here, if you see that little kind of spiny looking thing up at the very top, that inside has a certain amount of castor oil. So these are used for that, and they do separate the castor oil up, use it for other purposes, totally fine, right? But if you use the wrong part, it actually contains, it's ricin, which is 10 times, I think he said, more poisonous than the cyanide, which is the plant that we just saw. So according to the Guinness Book of World Records, this is the most poisonous plant in the world, and even a small amount can kill up to 120 people. And that's why some of these are in cages, so that idiots don't come up and try to touch it or taste it or do what idiots do. I wonder if anybody's tried to come in here to commit suicide. Like just been like, you know what, I'm gonna go out with a blaze of glory. I'm gonna unalive myself in a poison garden. This is a very common tree in England and Scotland. These just kind of grow. You'll also find them enclosed in older churchyards once they realize they're poisonous, to try to keep people away from them. These have been mistaken for lots of things before, and we heard a story of a farmer who had one of these on his property, and he didn't know what it was, so he left it for his cattle to graze on, and he said something like 200 head of cattle within like 20 minutes were dead. He came back an hour later, all of them were dead, and all their calves were dead. Very sad. Okay, so there was a plant here. He said that it's not there anymore, but usually they have a hogsweed. And the crazy thing about that plant is if you touch it, if it gets on your skin, it takes away your body's ability to protect itself from harmful UV rays. So basically, just even out on a day like today, it's kind of overcast, kind of gray, a little drizzly, any exposure to the sun at all, it's basically like vampire status. Your skin will bubble up into like giant blisters, and you have to go to the hospital. He said it takes 7 years for this stuff to like process through your system, for your body to be able to build up UV protection so that you can go outside uncovered. And for that 7 years, you have to have your skin completely covered, or else you'll just break out again in that spot where your skin was exposed to the plant. The next plant we're gonna look at is the hellebore. This one sort of looks, he said that sometimes people mistake it for weed and like call the cops on you if you have it in your garden. I think if you've ever seen a marijuana plant, you'll know that that's not what this is, but whatever. He also said that some people, like 25% of people, think it smells like marijuana. So there's that. But this plant was used by ancient soldiers to poison the ends of their swords and their arrows, so that even if the wound, if the cut or the, you know, the fight itself wasn't deadly, if that wasn't the final blow, that the poison would kill that person instead. The other thing about the hellebore is that evidently it can also kill tapeworms. So if a child had tapeworms, the mother would make a drink for them that hopefully was strong enough to kill the tapeworm, but oftentimes it was too strong and ended up killing the child too. The plant behind me right now is the laurel. So this on its own, like touching it isn't gonna kill you, but if you handle it, if it's chewed or if the leaves are broken, so if you like crunch it together, there are two chemicals in the plant that mix together to form cyanide gas. The really, really dangerous thing, of course, because it's poison, it's cyanide, is people would be trimming it, not knowing what it is, trimming the hedges, and get knocked unconscious and not know why. We also were told stories of people who put the trimmings into bags and then put the bags in their car. And one man left the trimmings in the back of the car over the weekend, and then on Monday morning was like, oh, just, you know, take these to dispose of them. And as soon as he shut the car door, basically that cyanide gas had been building up, and his car had just been like marinating over the weekend. His wife noticed about 10 minutes later that his car was still in the driveway and went out to check on him. He was already dead. Aquilegia. So this is one, this little guy right here. That's one that if back in the day, before abortions were accessible or legal in this country, there would basically always be kind of like a corner witch that had access to this plant, and this plant will terminate a pregnancy. And that can happen on purpose and it can happen on accident if someone who is pregnant it exposes themselves to this plant in a certain way. The other thing about this plant is that it is super, super high concentrate of vitamin C. And pirates back in the day were told to chew on this in order to prevent or treat scurvy. But unfortunately, there's so much vitamin C in it that they would end up dying anyway. Now we're to our winter jasmine. So if you take a look at this plant, this is also one that they've kind of, it's not really like in a cage like the other ones, but they definitely do not want you to touch this one anyway. So they mentioned it is extremely poisonous. This is also, according to our tour guide, not detectable in a toxicology report because just 2 little bits of this winter jasmine in a soup or a tea will give you a heart attack strong enough to kill you within 20 minutes and they won't even know. This little bush behind me is rosemary, and you're probably thinking, I've eaten rosemary before, no big deal. But rosemary, juniper, sage, and lavender are all herbs that if in oil form, so like massage oil, things like that, if it's in a concentrated oil form and it gets into a pregnant person's bloodstream either through topical application or ingestion, this is another set of plants that will terminate a pregnancy. There's also hemlock here. This plant has died. This is the last little branch that's left of it. The flowers The stem and the roots are, and the leaves are each often mistaken for other plants that won't kill you. And the hemlock kills you in a truly awful way. We were told the story of Socrates, and when he was going to be put to death, they asked him how he wanted to die, and he said, I would like to drink hemlock. And basically what happens is it starts from your feet, and over the course of about 10 excruciating hours, your muscles start to seize, and your muscles seize to full contraction. And what that means is that they start ripping away from the bone and ripping themselves apart. So slowly, one muscle at a time, inch by inch, your entire body starts ripping itself apart, all the way until it starts to get up into your chest. Your internal organs start to burst because they're seizing, all the way up onto your face. And we were told that since the muscles seize and they pull themselves apart, that you die with a smile on your face, which was the very disgusting end, but one final joke on Socrates for the rest of us. All right, everybody, this is Trevor. He was my tour guide. He is amazing, very, very knowledgeable. So if you are ever in the Poison Garden, please come and say hi to Mr. Trevor. So
thank you.
That's it. That's the Poison Garden. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.